In the last video, I talked about a page in Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 that knocked 4 new reasons to read right into my head. I was floored. And I said I would just do one for that video, rather than dilute the point by dumping all 4 on you at once. Well, today's the day for another video, and I guess there's no need to rush on to another book if we've still got some life left in this one. So today we'll be talking about another reason to read from the same book and the same page. In the last video, we talked about the quality of books, how books show real life, how they are quote unquote good rain and black loam. There's something of substance. And this conversation was between our main character in Fahrenheit 451, Montag, and retired English professor kind of in hiding named Faber. Now we're going to be picking up that same conversation in the next paragraph. I'm going to read the whole passage straight through, and then I'll give some thoughts at the end. So Faber says, well, there we have the first thing I said we needed: quality, texture of information. And then Montag asks, and the second? And Faber says, leisure. And then Montag says, oh, but we've plenty of off hours. And then Faber says this part here, which is the real point of the video. Off hours, yes, but time to think? If you're not driving 100 miles an hour at a clip where you can't think of anything else but the danger, then you're playing some game or sitting in some room where you can't argue with the 4-wall televisor. Why? The televisor is, quote unquote, real. It is immediate, it has dimension. It tells you what to think and blasts it in. It must be right. It seems so right. It rushes you on so quickly to its own conclusions, your mind hasn't time to protest. What nonsense. So first of all, we could talk for probably hours about the difference between off hours and time to think. So, just because you're not obligated to be doing anything right now, does that mean you actually have space in your mind to think over your life? But I'm actually going to continue reading a little bit more. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, and Montag says, my wife says books aren't, quote unquote, real. And then Faber says, thank God for that. You can shut them. Say, hold on a moment. You play God to it. But who has ever torn himself from the claw that encloses you when you drop a seed in a TV parlor? It grows you any shape it wishes. It is an environment as real as the world. It becomes and is the truth. Books can be beaten down with reason, but with all my knowledge and skepticism, I have never been able to argue with a 100-piece symphony orchestra, full color, 3 dimensions, and being in and part of those incredible parlors. As you see, my parlor is nothing but 4 plaster walls. So I'll pause there, quite a bit of information there, and a little bit of context if you haven't read the book, Fahrenheit 451, Dystopian Society, and he's referencing his parlor in this case because in this world, the TVs basically take up your entire wall, and it's very common to have 1, 2, or 3, or even 4 walls of the room be TV, so it's more immersive. So there's a lot to unpack there. Let me try. The gist of this whole monologue is you need time to think. Faber starts off by saying you need leisure, and not leisure in the sense of you need time to sleep in or you need time to watch golf or something like that, but leisure as in time to think. And then he's going to make an argument for books that I think is different than an argument you might normally hear. I think people have, when they say maybe the book was better than the movie, they're saying, the book is more real or it allows for more depth of understanding or something like that. Even in the very last video or on the previous page, we talked about how books really show life in a way that you couldn't get from a different medium. And I'm all for books. But here Faber is saying, hey, something nice about a book is that it's very obviously other than real life. It's very obviously pages, it's pieces of paper. And you can read a book and come across something you're not so sure about, and then you can close that book and you can come back to it later. You can say, hold on a moment. If you've done a bit of reading, especially things that have kind of opinions or ideas in them, you'll notice that you probably don't agree with every single thing every single book that you read says, right? That's probably healthy. You'll probably also notice that the authors don't agree with each other. Not that they're necessarily fighting or angry with each other, but they're all coming at life and at literature from a very different place. And so there are very contradictory ideas in my library that I have on my shelves here, my little library. Actually, we just moved, so most of my library is in boxes, but on future shelves, they will be on shelves. They have been on shelves in the past, but it's really just a soup of ideas. If I went down to the basement right now where the books are and I pulled out a random one and I pulled out another one, the odds are that they would not fully agree, or they would be talking about totally different things. I'm always picking them up, reading them, closing them, taking time to think about what they say, agreeing, disagreeing, wondering. And books sort of let you do that. Speaking of Ray Bradbury, I've been doing a Ray Bradbury recommended reading diet, quote unquote reading diet, that I've seen him mention in a couple of interviews, where each night I'm reading one short story, one essay, one nonfiction essay, and one poem. And there's two reasons I really enjoy doing it this way. Number one is I'm just kind of exposed to a bunch of different ideas fairly regularly. Every evening it's a minimum of 3 different authors, 3 different perspectives, and not like they're fighting. Usually it's not antagonistic, but they have different viewpoints on the world, not even necessarily based on what they're saying, but what they're choosing not to say, what they think is important enough to talk about, and the way that they say it. So that's number one, is I get to come face to face with several different realities each evening. But the second reason is about that time to think. If I read something really amazing, I have the opportunity for that to be the last thing I read that day or think about that day, and my mind has all night to kind of mull it over. But the point of this video isn't to get you to choose a specific reading routine. It's not to convince you that you need to both be reading and then scheduling meditation time to think it over. One of the really nice things about reading in general, and I've talked about this before, but reading itself is almost the meditation time. It is the forced slow time. And so don't worry about whether you're, quote unquote, doing it right. If you find a book that you think is worth reading and then you sit down with it and you read it for an hour, congratulations, you've just taken an hour out of your day to slowly contemplate things. And then if you end up thinking about it more later, great. If not, also okay. I'm thinking back, I have a couple of videos related to this, so I'll link those in the description. So we've sort of been all over the place today, and I read a passage from a book, and I talked about some things, and I talked about my nighttime reading routine. So thank you for sticking it out. But let me summarize it for you at the end here. You have off hours. Yeah, you have time when you're hopefully not having to be at work or having to do something else. You have off hours. But do you have time to think? And maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe your life's been so full of fast-paced activities and entertainment and work and sleep that you're really not able to actually ever say, I truly paused to think. But if you're wondering, hey, why do I need time to think? What would I be thinking about? Well, I could try and tell you, and I could try and give you some ideas, but it's different for everybody. Then my recommendation is, let this video end, we're almost done, turn it off, and then go think about it. And if the idea of carving out time to think seems difficult, you feel like you need maybe an activity to do, you can't just sit and think, then might I recommend, surprise, surprise, reading a book. Reading a book will slow you down, and it'll give you something to think about. So when you're done reading it, you actually have things to occupy your mind. So that's it. I'm going to do a couple of quick plugs at the end of this, so you can click away now. But if you're curious about hearing more about things we do on this channel, I'm going to tell you two things for now. Thing number one, if you don't know, I run a Reasons to Read mail club. So it's a physical mail club where I send letters out every month. This is the 3rd month we did. I just sent them out. And so those go all over the world, and it's a big brown envelope, and I put bookish mail in it. So basically pretty similar to what I do here on the channel. So I'll take like old essays or old fiction, and I'll put it together with my comments or my thoughts on it, or I'll include some of my own original fiction. Sometimes we'll include poetry, other little fun surprises. If you're curious about that and you'd like to maybe consider getting physical mail in your mailbox and have something to read, something to think about every month, then there should be a link in the description. And then a second announcement, I've been planning to make a launch video for this, but I haven't quite yet. So I wrote a novelette. It's like between a short story and a novella in length. And I released that last week. So it's something you can read in an afternoon. I'm not gonna make a claim as to how good it is. You can make that judgment for yourself, but I thoroughly enjoyed putting it together, and I hope that you would also thoroughly enjoy reading it. And the title of that book is called James Chalk Fair Buyer of Lightning. And it's about an apothecary in a fictional place called Clover Country, where alchemy, or just basically medical magic, is possible, but illegal. And so James is torn between trying to pursue higher knowledge and trying to do really cool and amazing things with the knowledge that what he's doing is possibly doing good, possibly doing harm, has him constantly on the run from the authorities. So anyway, if that sounds like your cup of tea or maybe something similar, then feel free to check that out. That's also linked in the description. But either way, find yourself some time to think this week. I hope you had a great day. Happy reading. Happy November. I'll see you next time.